My name is Eleanor Whitmore. I'm 28 years old, and until last month, I believe my life was mapped out with architectural precision. Daniel Harper and I had been together for 5 years. 5 years of shared calendars, shared savings goals, shared Sunday mornings, and late night takeout conversations about the kind of house we'd buy one day. We weren't chaotic, we weren't dramatic. We were steady, predictable, safe. At least that's what I thought. Daniel turned 30 on November 15th. I booked the restaurant he'd once pointed out 3 years ago, the absurdly expensive one overlooking the river, and said, half joking, "One day when we're celebrating something big, we'll come here." I saved for 8 months to afford that reservation. Not because he demanded extravagance, because I believed we were marking the beginning of the next chapter. I gave him a watch that night. Classic, understated. Engraved on the back were 3 words: "For our next step." He smiled when he opened it, kissed my cheek, called me thoughtful. Dinner felt normal, effortless. We talked about his workload, my recent audit project, his sister Madeline's ongoing rough patch, the condo listings we'd casually been browsing online. He reached across the table and squeezed my hand at one point. I remember thinking, this is it. This is what stable love looks like. Dessert arrived, his favorite tiramisu, a single candle flickering in the dim light. The river outside shimmered in reflections of city lamps. It felt cinematic, intentional. I didn't kneel. I didn't pull out a ring. I simply took a breath and said softly, "I think it's time we finally set a date." He blinked. And then he laughed. Not nervous, not overwhelmed. Amused. The sound cut through the restaurant noise like glass cracking. "Ellie," he said, shaking his head slightly, "you're like a sister to me." For a second, I thought I misheard him. He continued, still smiling as if this were harmless. "I love you, just not like that." The restaurant didn't actually go quiet. Forks still clinked. Conversations carried on. But inside my head, everything muted. 5 years. 5 years of conversations about wedding venues, of debating summer versus fall, of discussing guest lists, of talking about whether we'd want 2 kids or 3. 5 years of him telling our friends, when we get married. 5 years of shared savings labeled house fund. And I was a sister. My face felt hot, but my voice didn't shake. "Thank you for the clarity," I said. He frowned slightly, as if I'd misread the tone of the evening. "Ellie, don't be dramatic." I picked up my fork and took a bite of tiramisu. It tasted like nothing. I finished it anyway. We left the restaurant in near silence. The drive back to his apartment felt longer than usual, the city lights smearing across the windshield like something melting. He tried to fill the quiet halfway home. "We should talk about this properly. I didn't mean to blindside you." I kept my eyes on the road. "You didn't blindside me," I said calmly. "You clarified things." That seemed to unsettle him more than if I'd cried. When we reached his building, he hesitated before getting out of the car. "Ellie." "I need a few days," I said, "to think." He nodded slowly, confused, maybe expecting emotion, maybe expecting pursuit. Instead, I drove away. That was the moment everything changed. But not in the way you might think. I didn't go home and collapse. I didn't call my friends. I didn't cry in the shower. I opened my laptop. 3 weeks earlier, I'd noticed something odd in our joint savings account, a $17,000 withdrawal. When I'd asked Daniel about it, he'd been vague, said he was handling something, said he'd explain soon. I had let it slide because I was too busy planning this dinner, too focused on the future. I work in accounting. Numbers don't disappear without intention. I logged into the account again at 2:07 a.m. The balance hadn't changed. $17,000 still unaccounted for. And suddenly, sitting in the glow of my screen, replaying the sound of his laugh, I realized something unsettling. You don't call someone your sister after 5 years unless you've already emotionally stepped away. And people don't emotionally step away without stepping towards something else. I leaned back in my chair and stared at the ceiling. I wasn't heartbroken yet. I was alert, and for the first time in months, the pieces were beginning to line up. Daniel called me 15 times the next morning. I didn't answer. He texted, "Can we talk? I didn't mean it like that. You know I care about you. Ellie, please don't do this." I didn't respond to any of it. Silence is a powerful thing. It forces people to sit with their own words. For 3 days, I replayed the dinner in my head. Not dramatically, not obsessively, just analytically. The laugh, the phrasing, the absence of hesitation. You don't accidentally tell someone they feel like a sibling. By the second day, the humiliation had faded. What replaced it was something colder, pattern recognition. On the 4th day, I finally replied, "Coffee, tomorrow." 4 p.m., Maple and Stone. Neutral ground. No shared memories. No romance. Just caffeine and clarity. He was already there when I walked in. He looked tired, unshaven, his knee bouncing under the table. Good. I sat down across from him, ordered black coffee, didn't ask how he was. He spoke first. I've barely slept. That makes two of us, I said evenly. He swallowed. Ellie, that night, I panicked. I wasn't expecting you to bring that up like that. Bring what up? I asked calmly. Our future? The thing we've been discussing for 5 years? He rubbed his forehead. It just felt sudden. 5 years is sudden? He exhaled sharply. You know what I mean. No, I said, I don't. There it was. The discomfort. The realization that I wasn't going to make this easy for him. I leaned forward slightly. I need you to explain something to me. How do we have 5 years of conversations about getting married, about buying a house, about kids? How do you let me save money with you, plan with you, build with you, and then tell me I feel like your sister? He looked down at the table. I do love you. I let the silence stretch. Like family? I asked. He winced. That came out wrong. No, I said softly. It came out honest. He stared at his hands for a long moment. Then, finally, I've been seeing someone. There it was. Not a shock. A confirmation. How long? I asked. He hesitated. 3 months. 3 months. 3 months meant September. The Portland Work Conference. The hotel room where he'd told me he loved me while scrolling through vineyard tours for next spring. The same month the $17,000 disappeared. Who is she? I asked. Her name's Olivia, he said quietly. Olivia Chen. She's a client at the firm. I remembered her. Company holiday party 6 months ago. Polished, confident. The kind of woman who made eye contact a second too long. Does she know about me? I asked. He hesitated again. She knows we were complicated. I almost smiled. We were saving for a house, Daniel. He flinched at the word where. I didn't mean for this to happen, he said quickly. I didn't plan it. It felt different, exciting. And I felt what? I asked. He didn't answer. Safe. Predictable. Stable. The kind of person you call your sister. I don't want to lose you, he said suddenly. We have history. You're my best friend. I looked at him carefully. You don't get both, I said. You don't get a future with her and a fallback with me. He swallowed. I thought maybe we could figure something out. That sentence told me everything I needed to know. He didn't expect consequences. He expected negotiation. I stood up. That's not how this works, I said calmly. You made your decision 3 months ago. Ellie, I placed cash on the table for my coffee. One more question, I said. He looked up, hopeful. Did you laugh because you thought it was ridiculous? Or because you already knew? His face drained of color. That was my answer. I walked out. The air outside felt sharp against my skin, clean. When I got home, I didn't cry. I opened my laptop, 2:13 p.m. Joint savings account, Whitmore and Harper. I stared at the transaction history. $17,000 withdrawal. 6 weeks ago. The date sat there like a blinking cursor. 3 months of an affair. 6 weeks of missing money. And suddenly the timeline wasn't just emotional. It was financial. I leaned back in my chair. If Daniel had been emotionally stepping away, the money might have followed. And if the money followed, then this wasn't just betrayal. It was strategy. I picked up my phone, scrolled through my contacts, paused on a name I'd memorized from LinkedIn months ago, Olivia Chen. I didn't press call. Not yet. But for the first time since the restaurant, I wasn't thinking about the laugh. I was thinking about leverage. I waited until the next morning to call her. Not out of hesitation, out of discipline. I didn't want my voice to sound emotional. I wanted it steady, neutral, informational. At 9:18 a.m., I dialed the number listed under Olivia Chen's professional contact page. She answered on the third ring. Hello? Hi, is this Olivia Chen? Yes, who's this? My name is Eleanor Whitmore, I said evenly. I believe you've been seeing my boyfriend, Daniel Harper. Silence. Not confusion. Recognition. She began carefully. Daniel told me you two were basically over. I'm sure he did, I replied calmly. That's not why I'm calling. Another pause. Then why are you calling? Because I don't like unfinished accounts, I thought. Aloud, I said, I'm calling because Daniel withdrew $17,000 from our joint savings account 6 weeks ago, money that largely came from my inheritance and performance bonus. He never explained what it was for. Given the timeline of your relationship, I thought you deserved clarity. Her breath shifted. What are you implying? I'm not implying anything, I said. I work in accounting. I deal in documentation. The money disappeared. The explanation never arrived. You entered the picture around the same time. That has nothing to do with me, she snapped, but there was a tremor underneath. Maybe not, I said softly. But if you're building something with him, you should know how he handles financial transparency. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't accuse. I simply presented data. You're trying to sabotage us, she said. If I wanted to sabotage you, I'd send screenshots, I replied. Silence again. That landed. I haven't confronted Daniel about it formally yet, I continued, but I will, and I've already spoken to a lawyer to understand my options. I just thought you'd prefer to hear it from me instead of discovering it later. You contacted a lawyer? She asked. Yes. For what? For $17,000. I let that sit there. I'm not threatening you, I added. I'm informing you. And then I hung up. I didn't wait for her response. I sat at my desk for a full minute afterward, staring at my reflection in the black screen of my phone. I didn't feel vindictive. I felt organized. What I hadn't told Olivia was that I had already compiled every transaction record, every transfer, every email exchange about our savings. I had a spreadsheet detailing contributions by source, dates, percentages, notes. When I first saw the discrepancy 6 weeks ago, I'd assumed there was a logical explanation. Daniel had looked stressed at the time. He'd said, "I'm handling something. I'll explain soon." I had trusted him. That was my mistake. At 11:42 a.m., my phone rang. Daniel. I let it ring once. Twice. Then I answered. What did you do? He demanded. Good morning, I said calmly. Did you call Olivia? Yes. Why would you do that? The truth seemed relevant. You had no right to drag her into this. I almost laughed at that. No right? I repeated. She's been involved for 3 months. He exhaled sharply. You're twisting things. Am I? It's not what you think. Then explain it, I said. Silence. I could hear him breathing. Fast. It wasn't for her, he said finally. The money. That's not what it was for. Then what was it for? Another pause. I can't tell you. That answer felt familiar. You can't, I repeated slowly. Or you won't? It's complicated. No, I said evenly. $17,000 isn't complicated. He lowered his voice. Ellie, you're making this bigger than it needs to be. No, I said again. You made it that big when you took it. There it was, the shift. This wasn't about heartbreak anymore. This was about partnership, or the absence of it. Are you threatening legal action? He asked cautiously. I'm protecting myself, I replied. Those aren't the same thing. He was quiet for a long time. I was going to tell you, he said eventually. When? I asked. Before or after we set a wedding date? That hit. I didn't think you were serious about that, he muttered. 5 years. I see, I said softly. You're blowing everything up, he added. No, I corrected him. You did that at dinner. Another silence. Then, almost quietly, what do you want? There it was. Not an apology. A negotiation. I want the $17,000 returned, I said, by the end of the month. That's not possible. It will be, I replied calmly. Or this becomes legal. You wouldn't. I would. I wasn't angry. I wasn't yelling. And that unsettled him more than anything. You're not the person I thought you were, he said. That makes 2 of us, I replied. I ended the call. Then I opened a new tab on my browser. Harper residence, Daniel's parents, contact information. If he wouldn't explain it, someone would. And if there was a reason for the money, I was going to uncover it. I didn't warn Daniel before I called his parents. That was intentional. If I told him, he would spin it, frame it, edit it. I didn't want the filtered version. I wanted the original. His mother answered on the second ring. Eleanor, hi, sweetheart. Is everything okay? Her voice was warm, familiar. I'd spent 5 Thanksgivings at their house, helped his father fix his email password, brought wine to family dinners. I wasn't a stranger. That made what I was about to say heavier. I need to ask you something, I said carefully, and I need you to be honest with me. A pause. Of course. Where did Daniel get $17,000 6 weeks ago? Silence. Not defensive. Confused. I'm sorry, what? I exhaled slowly. He withdrew $17,000 from our joint savings account. He hasn't explained why. He's been seeing someone else for 3 months, and 4 days ago, he told me I feel like a sister to him. Another silence. Longer this time. I could hear faint movement. Maybe she was sitting down. He what? She whispered. I repeated everything. Calmly, methodically. The dinner, the laugh, the money, the affair. When I finished, she didn't rush to defend him. She said very quietly, he didn't tell us any of this. That was the response I was hoping for. In the background, I heard her call out to her husband. Low voices, urgent, muffled. She came back on the line. Eleanor, about the money. Yes. Madeline called us about 2 months ago. My chest tightened slightly. Daniel's younger sister. 26, smart, sensitive, struggled quietly for years. She said she was in trouble, his mother continued. Owed people money. Serious money. She wouldn't explain details, but she was terrified. We gave her what we could, not that much. We thought Daniel might help her too, but he never said anything. $17,000. I closed my eyes. Do you know how much she owed? I asked. Another pause. 17,000, she said softly. There it was. The missing piece. She relapsed, his mother added, voice cracking. We didn't want to burden you with it. Daniel said he was handling it. Handling it. By taking money from our future without telling me. I didn't feel immediate anger. I felt displacement. He hadn't trusted me enough to tell me. He hadn't believed I could handle the truth. Or worse, he hadn't considered me part of the decision. Does he know you're telling me this? I asked. No. Good. When I hung up, I sat at my kitchen table and stared at nothing for several minutes. Madeline in trouble. Debt. Fear. Daniel stepping in. On the surface, it was noble. Protective older brother. Except he hadn't used his money. He'd used ours. Without a conversation. Without consent. While telling me he loved me. While laughing at the idea of marrying me. The betrayal shifted shape in my mind. It wasn't just about Olivia. It was about exclusion. If we were planning a life together, then financial emergencies were ours to navigate together. Addiction relapses were ours to discuss. Family crises were ours to shoulder. But he had decided alone, which meant in his mind we weren't partners. We were convenient. My phone buzzed. Daniel. I answered this time. You called my parents? He asked, voice tight. Yes. You had no right. You had no right to take $17,000, I replied evenly. It was for Madeline. I know. Silence. You know, he repeated. Yes. His breathing changed. You weren't supposed to find out like that. That's interesting, I said quietly. How was I supposed to find out? I was going to tell you. When? I asked. After we bought a house together? After we got married? Or after I noticed the missing money in escrow paperwork? That's not fair. No, I agreed softly. It isn't. He was quiet. She was in danger, he said finally. You don't understand. Then you should have made me understand. I didn't want to stress you. I almost laughed. You didn't want to stress me, I repeated slowly, but you were comfortable letting me believe we were building a future on accurate numbers? I fixed it. You hid it. Another silence. This is about control for you, he said suddenly. You need everything tracked, accounted for. I didn't raise my voice. It's about partnership, I said. You didn't treat me like one. He didn't respond. And in that silence, something settled inside me. The humiliation at the restaurant? That was ego. The affair? That was betrayal. But this was clarity. He didn't see me as someone who deserved full access to his reality. He saw me as stability, backup, emotional insurance. Return the $17,000, I said calmly. By the end of the month. That's impossible. Then I pursue it legally. You'd really do that? After everything? Yes, I said. And for the first time since dinner, I felt something solid. Not anger, resolve. Because love might survive humiliation. It might even survive infidelity. But it does not survive exclusion. And I would not build a future with someone who edited me out of the hard parts. Daniel came over that evening without asking. He still had a key. I was sitting at the kitchen counter when I heard the lock turn. I didn't flinch. I had expected this. He looked different. Not guilty, not remorseful. Cornered. You're threatening to sue me, he said instead of hello. I'm asking for my money back, I corrected. It was for my sister. It was from our account. He ran a hand through his hair. You're acting like I stole it. You did. That's not fair. No, I said quietly. What's not fair is finding out through your mother. He exhaled sharply. I was protecting her. And who was protecting me? I asked. That stopped him. For a moment, he looked genuinely confused, as if the idea hadn't occurred to him. I didn't want to drag you into that mess, he said. We were planning a life together. That doesn't mean every problem becomes yours. Yes, I said softly. It does. Silence stretched between us. He leaned against the counter. You don't understand what she was dealing with. You're right, I said, because you didn't let me. He shook his head. You would have overanalyzed it, turned it into spreadsheets and repayment plans. That's called being responsible. It's called suffocating, he snapped. There it was, the resentment beneath the surface. 5 years of me being steady, structured, reliable. To him, that had slowly turned into pressure. I wasn't suffocating you, I said calmly. I was building something. I never asked you to plan everything, he shot back. No, I agreed. You just benefited from it. That landed. He looked away. I felt boxed in, he admitted after a long pause. The house fund, the wedding talk. Everything felt so mapped out. You participated in those conversations. I didn't think they were real. 5 years. They were real to me, I said quietly. He finally looked at me. I didn't think you'd actually push for it, he continued. I thought we'd just keep things how they were. Comfortable. Stable, unchallenged. And Olivia? I asked. His jaw tightened. She made me feel different. Unplanned? I suggested. He didn't deny it. There it was. Not romance, not destiny. Escape. You wanted excitement, I said. And you wanted stability. He said nothing. You don't get both. The room felt smaller suddenly. I straightened. I want the full $17,000 returned by the 30th, I said clearly. Plus interest. His eyes widened. Interest? Yes. You're unbelievable. No, I replied evenly. I'm done being accommodating. And if I can't, you can. And if I don't, I pursue it legally. You dragged my family into court over this? You dragged my future into uncertainty. He stared at me like he didn't recognize me. You've changed, he said. No, I said softly. I stopped ignoring things. That quieted him. After a moment, I added, You need to move out. He blinked. This is my place too. Our names are both on the lease, I agreed, which means I'll buy out your portion. I've already spoken to the landlord. You've already? He stopped. Yes, I had. Because once the pattern was visible, I don't hesitate. You planned this, he said slowly. I adapted. He walked toward the window, stared out at the street below. You're really ending this. You ended it 3 months ago, I said. I just found out. He turned back towards me, frustration flickering into something else. Regret. Ellie, we could fix this. With what? I asked. Trust? Silence. I didn't mean to hurt you, he said. But you did. That hung in the air. After a long moment, he nodded slowly. 30 days, he muttered. 30 days, I confirmed. He moved into the spare bedroom that night. We didn't yell. We didn't slam doors. We became quiet strangers in a shared space. And in the quiet, something unexpected happened. I stopped feeling heartbroken. Instead, I felt awake, because the laugh at dinner hadn't broken me. It had revealed him. Living with someone who has already left you emotionally is a strange experience. Daniel moved his clothes into the spare bedroom the next morning. He took his laptop charger, his framed photos, the small stack of books he never finished reading. The rest stayed where it was, like a museum exhibit of a life paused mid-sentence. We barely spoke. He left early, came home late, sometimes not at all. I didn't ask where he went. I assumed. And for the first time in 5 years, I stopped tracking his movements in my head. Day 12, he tried. Madeline checked into a program, he said quietly from the doorway one evening. That's good, I replied without looking up from my laptop. She's stable. I'm glad. He lingered like he expected more. There wasn't more. Day 19, he asked, Are you really charging me interest? Yes. He let out a humorless laugh. You're ruthless. No, I said calmly. I'm precise. He stared at me for a long moment. I don't even recognize you anymore. That's because you stopped paying attention. Day 23, I noticed he had begun packing in earnest. Boxes appeared near the hallway. The framed photo of us at the coast disappeared from the bookshelf. I didn't feel grief watching it go. I felt space. Day 28, I came home from work and found an envelope on the kitchen counter. My name written across the front in his handwriting. No dramatics, no long explanation. Inside was a cashier's check, $17,000, plus calculated interest, down to the dollar. I almost smiled at that. He had done the math properly. Next to it was a folded sheet of paper. I'm moving in with Olivia tomorrow. I've signed the paperwork to remove my name from the lease effective immediately. I'll pick up the rest of my things next month. I'm sorry. I didn't handle this well. No declarations of love. No, please. Just retreat. I stood there for a moment, the envelope still in my hand. 5 years condensed into one sterile check. I deposited it that evening. Watching the balance return to what it should have been felt strangely grounding. Not victorious, not satisfying. Corrected. The apartment was quiet that night. Not tense, just quiet. And for the first time since the restaurant, I slept through the night. 6 weeks later, I heard through mutual friends that Daniel and Olivia had broken up. Apparently, after my phone call, Olivia started asking questions. Not just about the $17,000, about credit cards, student loans, Madeline's previous relapses, financial responsibilities Daniel had downplayed. When she realized his life wasn't as streamlined as she thought, she got nervous. They tried to make it work for a few weeks. It didn't. Excitement fades quickly when spreadsheets enter the room. Daniel moved back in with his parents. Madeline stayed in treatment. His parents were covering most of the costs. I didn't ask for updates. I didn't reach out. I started therapy. Twice a week at first. Then once. I joined a gym. Not dramatically, not as revenge. Just routine. I also did something else. The Tokyo trip Daniel and I had talked about for 2 years. The one we postponed because next year will be better. I booked it. For 2 weeks in April. Cherry blossom season. My friends thought I was spiraling. I wasn't. I was recalibrating. The first morning in Tokyo, I sat alone in a small cafe, sunlight filtering through paper screens, and realized something surprising. I didn't miss him. I missed the version of the future I had built. And that version had never actually included the real Daniel. When I came back, I felt lighter. Not healed, just aligned. 3 days after I returned, I ran into him. It happened in the least cinematic place possible. A grocery store. I was standing in the produce aisle, comparing avocados, when I heard my name. Ellie? I turned. Daniel looked smaller. Not physically, just energetically. The sharpness he used to carry, the effortless confidence, had dulled. He looked tired, thinner, like someone who hadn't been sleeping well. Hi, I said calmly. There was no rush of anger, no spike in my chest, just recognition. How was Tokyo? He asked, glancing at the reusable bag in my cart with Japanese lettering. Beautiful, I replied. You would have liked it. That wasn't cruelty, it was truth. He nodded slowly. I saw your photos. I figured. A small silence settled between us. Not hostile, just unfamiliar. I'm glad you went, he said after a moment. I'm glad I did too. He shifted his weight. Madeline's doing better. I heard. 6 weeks clean. That's good, I said, and I meant it. He hesitated. Olivia and I, he started, then stopped. It didn't work out. I heard that too. A faint, embarrassed smile crossed his face. You probably think that's karma. I don't, I said honestly. I think it's pattern. That made him exhale through his nose, almost a laugh, but not quite. I was an idiot, he said quietly. I didn't rush to comfort him. I panicked, he continued, about everything. The house, the wedding talk. It felt like my whole life was being decided. You were deciding it with me, I said. I didn't see it that way then. I know. He looked at me carefully. You're different. I'm clearer, I corrected. Another pause. When you brought up setting a date that night, he said slowly, I didn't expect you to actually mean it. 5 years. I did, I said. I guess I thought we had more time. We had 5 years. He looked down at the floor. I didn't think you'd ever really leave, he admitted. That sentence told me more than any apology could have. You didn't leave, he added quickly. You just changed. No, I said softly. You stepped out. I adjusted. He swallowed. I never meant to make you feel like you didn't matter. You didn't mean to, I agreed. You just didn't notice. That landed heavier than anger ever could. For a moment, neither of us spoke. People pushed carts past us. A child dropped a box of cereal somewhere behind us. Life kept moving. I miss you, he said finally. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't desperate. It was honest. I studied his face. 5 years of memories lived there. Road trips, movie nights, inside jokes, Sunday mornings. But they felt archived. I don't, I said gently. His expression flickered, hurt, then acceptance. Are you seeing someone? He asked. No. But you're okay? Yes. That seemed to surprise him more than anything else. He nodded slowly. I thought you'd be angrier. I was, I said, for about 2 weeks. And now? Now I'm grateful. For what? For the laugh. He blinked. If you hadn't laughed, I continued, I might have married you. That silence was different. Heavy. Real. I didn't know how to say I was scared, he admitted. You could have tried honesty. I know. We stood there, the distance between us no longer sharp, just settled. I'm sorry, he said again. I know. And for the first time, I believed he meant it. But apology and compatibility are not the same thing. I hope you figure out what you actually want, I said. He nodded. And I hope you stop planning everything so far ahead, he added gently. I smiled faintly. I won't, I said. And that was okay. He stepped back first. Take care, Ellie. You too, Daniel. I watched him walk toward the checkout line. No aish, no pull. Just recognition that some people are meant to walk with you for a season, not a lifetime. As I pushed my cart toward the register, I realized something quietly powerful. I hadn't lost 5 years. I had learned in 5 seconds. And this time, when something doesn't add up, emotionally or financially, I won't ignore it. A week after the grocery store, Daniel texted me one last time. Can we talk? Not about getting back together, just closure. I stared at the message for a long moment. Closure is a strange word. It implies something unfinished. But I didn't feel unfinished. Still, I agreed. We met at the same neutral coffee shop where he had told me about Olivia. Full circle. He looked less tense this time. Not hopeful, just reflective. I've been in therapy too, he said after we sat down. That's good. I realized something, he continued. When you brought up setting a date that night, I didn't laugh because you were ridiculous. I raised an eyebrow slightly. I laughed because I felt exposed, he admitted, like you were holding up a mirror and I didn't recognize myself in it. That was more honest than anything he'd said before. You could have said that, I replied. I didn't know how. We sat with that. I kept telling myself we had time, he went on. Time to figure it out. Time to grow up. Time to decide. And when you said you were ready, I realized I wasn't. So you chose someone who didn't require a decision, I said. He didn't argue. Yes, there it was again. Not romance, avoidance. I thought you'd always be there, he added quietly. I know. And when you weren't, everything felt unstable. I wasn't your stability, I said. I was your partner, or I thought I was. He nodded slowly. You were, he said. I just didn't act like it. That sentence didn't fix anything, but it was accurate. I don't hate you, he said. I don't hate you either. He looked surprised. I was angry, I continued, about the money, about the exclusion, about the laugh. But anger burns fast when you stop feeding it. And now I just see it clearly. He studied me for a long moment. You really would have married me, he said softly. Yes. And you don't regret that? I thought about it. I regret ignoring the small inconsistencies, I said. Not loving you. That seemed to land somewhere deep. I didn't deserve that kind of loyalty, he murmured. That's not how it works, I replied. People don't deserve love. They maintain it. We sat in silence, not uncomfortable, just aware. I don't think I was ready to be the person you thought I was, he admitted. I don't think you were either. He gave a faint smile at that. So this is it? He asked. It's been it, I said gently. He nodded. I hope you find someone who matches your precision, he added, almost teasing. I hope you find someone who doesn't feel like a timeline, I replied. We both smiled at that. There was no dramatic handshake, no final embrace. Just two people who had finally stopped misunderstanding each other. As I walked out of the coffee shop, sunlight hit my face, warm and steady. For months I had framed that dinner as humiliation. But it wasn't. It was information. The laugh wasn't cruelty. It was revelation. He didn't betray me because he was evil. He betrayed me because he was unsure and too afraid to admit it. And I had loved him because I believed certainty was mutual. It wasn't. I didn't lose 5 years. I gained a filter. I will never again ignore a $17,000 discrepancy, a 3-second hesitation, or a laugh that sounds like dismissal instead of joy. Love doesn't fail in dramatic explosions. It fails in small omissions. And next time I won't need a public moment to recognize one.